Connor, thanks for spending some time with us today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
We know that you guys have been a long-time customer of AutoStore for quite some time. And we know that there's a lot of rapid changes in business. And how is AutoStore helping you adjust to these changes and get used to the new way of doing business?
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, right, we've been partners for the last 10 years, now 3 sites, almost 800,000 bins total, through our entire network. And, I think what really drew us to the overall AutoStore product was, the ability to scale up quickly, depending on with different customer trends, whatever the market's doing. I think specifically this year, when we look at different trends maybe outside of warehousing, like the tariffs and things like that, the market share for ourselves and our other competitors is paramount, right? Because not everybody has shoes to be able to put on the wall right now. So what AutoStore allows us to do is really get those shoes to the customer as fast as they possibly can, which hopefully will give us a competitive advantage in that space.
Yeah, it's really interesting because working with a lot of the different sites globally, some countries have a rising change in shoes or a different size or a different color. How does that change like throughout the year? And then one year shoes are super hot, another year apparel's hotter. Like how does that change, like mess with your business or?
Yeah, so in one of our sites alone, we manage over 70,000 SKUs within our AutoStore, right? So I think what works for us is that it's not only just a distribution opportunity for us, but it's also a storage ability, right? So what it allows us to do is, what it actually does is it brings up the product that we need and make it faster for us to distribute it to the overall customer versus maybe a style that maybe is not as popular nowadays will kind of still be in the system and ready to go whenever the quick changes and trends change. So we're kind of able to have that natural kind of Pareto effect overall to be able to make sure that we deliver to the customer.
Yeah, it's important because you have no idea what the customers are going to want or do next month, next week, and the ability to change on a dime is really, really helpful for the operation.
It's unbelievable, and I think when we also look at what marketing is done too, right? Fast marketing with internet and things like that, right? It's not, I don't think people are necessarily as brand specific now. They're more, they see one style and they want that one style. So you have to be ready to not only get the products into your warehouse, but you need to be able to turn it around and then get it out to that customer fast.
Yeah. So you talk about going out fast. Tell us a little bit about how like life is like in the summer versus like when the high throughput season comes and peak season. Like how does that really change? And what do you guys have to do differently as far as your operation?
Yeah, I think in general, right, in the overall industry, there's really 2 main peaks, right? So there's back to school, and then there's the main holiday season, right, which runs from Black Friday through the Christmas period. And for us, really, the peak season is almost 2 times what we're doing on a natural day-to-day volume. So with our AutoStore and our warehouse and our distribution in general, we have to leverage a lot of temp agencies to be able to fill that demand of labor. What AutoStore has allowed us to do is have multiple different and a modular design to bring up multiple different people very, very quickly. And one of the things that we're really, really proud of, through the help of AutoStore, through the help of our integrators, et cetera, we can get somebody in the building, set up, and picking orders and getting them out the door in less than 15 minutes. So with all of that kind of, with the SOPs and the easy construct of the overall system, we're able to really ramp up quickly and ramp down, which also plays itself into the customer trends as well, right? Because now what we're starting to see is those 2 peaks are now starting to kind of flatten out into more product-driven peaks. So if we get a hot product, we could see in one given week, volumes go up to 300% versus what the forecast was, and we don't have an issue with being able to get those orders out.
Can you imagine what life would be like without an automation system like AutoStore to plan for these unexpected peaks and these cold items that turn like, super hot and fly out so fast? Like, how would you do that in a manual environment?
It's funny you say that. We're deconstructing one of our old warehouses from the beginning of 2000, I want to say, and the average employee was actually walking close to 11 miles a day, picking through a 3-story mezzanine in our Torrance warehouse. Now, I mean, the AutoStore, they're essentially stable in one position, being able to pick, which is also allowed for increases in overall picking efficiency, picking accuracy, and overall just employee appreciation of the role, right? It's a lot easier for them to do the role. It's a lot less demanding on them, which also allows us to retain and attract new talent, because it's a little bit more of a of an easier atmosphere to acclimate them to.
So your team does like working at those workstations. They like the fact that they're not walking 13 miles a day. And
absolutely,
yeah.
You know, especially, right, you think of our new facility in Glendale, Arizona, right, where it gets to 120, 125 degrees in the summertime, right? You know, to be able to be in a safe environment, which is paramount for us, number one, as it is with AutoStore, and to have that accuracy with the picking and to keep the process simple. I think in this age of AI and trying to make things, you know, getting so much big data in there and trying to make it so confusing, I think the AutoStore system has done a great balance of being able to kind of take that overall robotics and that heavy, you know, software engineering side of it, but also make it very user-friendly. So what we are able to bring in people that maybe are not experts in technology, and we can get them up and running in an environment that they want to stay in.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Connor, how do you see automation fitting in your broader strategy from a risk mitigation perspective?
So I think there's really two main areas that we look at that, right? So when we look at risk, one is, as I mentioned before, right, it's the employee retention risk, right? So what we're starting to see in the workplace, right, is employees are leaving at the fastest pace that they've ever done before, right? And the competition is everywhere. Being able to have an AutoStore, have it be safe, we're able to maintain and retain that talent, which also will help with our overall throughput and increase in the speed at which we're able to deliver products to customers. The second side of things, which is the most paramount for any person in supply chain, right, is being able to make sure that the system is stable and the system is running. And with our three systems that we have, we average a 99% uptime across all three of our AutoStores, which is huge. And I think for us, what really drove us to AutoStore compared to some of the other competitors was there really is no single source of failure. So let's just say you have many robots on the grid, one goes down, maybe there's an issue, that's not a problem. We can remove that one and the operation keeps going. Or with one of the totes, there's an issue, we can remove that tote or look into that one tote, the operation is continuing. It's not all stacked onto each other in a synchronized pattern. Everything runs independently, so it allows us to maintain that 99%, which then allows us to fulfill the orders and get them out the door.
No, that's awesome. One of the favorite things I like to ask people is, you've been at this a while. You've got a number of AutoStores in your network. What piece of advice would you give yourself 5 years ago, 7 years ago? I ask because like a lot of people look at things and they harp on data points or maybe a bullet point that they really think are super important. And then they live life 5 and 7 years later and they're like, that was the most insignificant data point or bullet point. Like, why did I care? Like, I should have cared about this way more than that. Or like, what any tips or advice you'd give for your younger self?
Yeah, I think absolutely the number one thing I would say first is you really have to understand your business, right? And I think sometimes when we talk about different types of technologies, everybody wants to jump in, head first, and they want to do everything automated, especially in this age of AI, right? And I think understanding your business and what your true needs are versus just kind of buying off of, the magazine and saying, I want one of these and one of these and one of these, I think would really benefits the person long term. The second thing I would say is always allow yourself room to grow, right? Everybody is so focused on building systems that are going to meet their needs for today and maybe 2 years down the road. Start looking 8 years down the road. And I think that's another huge benefit to the AutoStore, right? As we mentioned before, with its modular design, not only from a robotic perspective or a port, but also with the overall grid, right? You can build it large and slowly fill it up with bins or with ports. Or you could even start small, build it out, and then add an entire new wing onto it, if the business changes, right? So I think really understanding where you think the business is going to go without having that kind of silver ball to know the future, I think will really make a lot of the decisions downstream a lot easier for you in the future.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Oh, here's a question that I get from time to time. So how fast can you guys receive inventory and get it out to the customers? Like, how fast can you turn it? We get a lot of questions along the lines of we have to receive it and then we have to put it away to bulk and then we have to pull it from bulk and then we have to put it into a forward pick location and then we have to start picking it and then we have to start shipping it out when our next wave happens. And a lot of those instances, it can be days to weeks. Like, tell us a little bit how it was for you and how it is for you with AutoStore.
Yeah, I think what makes AutoStore different, right, and how PUMA leverages the AutoStore is that we are able to use it not only as the fulfillment operation, but also the storage operation as well. So in general, we keep about 60% of our inventory within the four walls of our auto stores. So what that allows us to do is to alleviate the step of having to inbound the products, put it away to a bulk location, and then bring it back into an active location to then ship it out the door. So not only are we getting the speed benefit to the customer, which allows us to fulfill the order faster, but we're also saving money from a warehousing cost, right? We're not having to double touch or sometimes even triple touch the same product, right? And holistically, once you tie in the AutoStore with all the additional conveyor systems, et cetera, it also drives up your order accuracy as well, right? You have less human touch, everything is automated, the system is automated. So as you bring those units all the way through the system, not only are we making sure that we're building the best case scenario from a distribution standpoint, we're also ensuring that the customer is getting the product that they ordered. Because a lot of times, as you can imagine, the competition right now is crazy with so many new companies entering into the market space. Sometimes you only have one time, to impress a new customer. So to us, not only is speed paramount, but the order has to be accurate as well.
So you talked about speed. What are the SLAs you guys are living with at different points in the year?
Yeah, so I think we've shifted away, from the Amazon model, as many companies have, right? I think in the beginning of COVID, everybody was kind of trying to keep up with the Joneses in terms of, the 2-day shipping. Every customer is going to demand that. And what we're really starting to notice is customers want that, but they're not necessarily willing to pay for it, right? So they're okay with a little bit of a longer lead time. So our SLA is from an e-com order, we want to get everything out the door within 24 hours. So by the time we receive the order in the warehouse to the time it actually ships out on the truck, whether it's courier, parcel, whatever, is 24 hours. And we are hitting that with a 98% across all 3 sites.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so millions of units a year within that SLA.
And before AutoStore, how easy was that to accomplish?
We were in the mid 80s, maybe I would say, on a good time. And not only that, you imagine the head count that you have to add on to be able to hit that, right?
It's a lot.
Right, so to put it in perspective, one person in kind of an old, what I would consider an old 3-story mezzanine type of structure, and your normal pick and pack, right? Walking down the aisle and picking, they might be able to do, maybe 75 units an hour, give or take. With our AutoStore system now, they're picking about 250 to 300 units an hour without having to move consistently all the way through the day. So because what ends up happening, right? You end up having fatigue throughout the day, right? Everybody starts really high and then slowly throughout the day, everybody gets tired, the productivity drops. We don't have that problem with the AutoStore, right? Because they're not getting fatigued, right? It's very intuitive to the picker. And what we're able to do is also track it as well, right? Everything is being able to be monitored. We're able to see where we're falling short and being able to mitigate that right on the spot.
So now that you've got your AutoStore, and I would say it's pretty well baked, you've been using it for quite some time across the different 3 sites. What are some of the things that you're working on to get to that next level of operation, that's taking your operation to the next level, that's not an AutoStore? Now that you have less focus required on the scope that is AutoStore, what are the next things you're going to really tackle and try to focus on to get better?
So the way our approach to automation in general is to really find one area that we want to invest in, and then really kind of go out into the market and see who has the best products at the best price points and who are the best partners to work with. And we were very excited to hear that AutoStore is now going into robotic picking, because that was actually our next natural path forward on our robotic journey. So it's great that we're able to have human pickers do that, but with a lot of our orders, a lot of them are very large, right? They're going to wholesalers, they're going to retailers, right? So it's the same article over and over and over again. So what we want to do is we want to replace some of those headcounts to allow them to do other functions within the warehouse that may be a little bit more decision-making processes, and replace that with robotic picking. So I think with the announcement of AutoStore's Carousel AI, we're really looking forward to kind of continue and partner that leverage and that partnership moving forward, so that way we can deliver a potentially new solution into our DC.
That's awesome. Connor, I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for giving us the time and having this conversation and giving the internet what information you shared with us today.
Yeah,
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, and look forward to the partnership with AutoStore moving forward.
Absolutely. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Good.